Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey is one of the most mesmerizing cinematic experiences ever created. Visionary compositions, groundbreaking special effects, and booming classical music all converge to make 2001 an epic film in the truest sense. This grand, mind-blowing imagery, plunging us into interstellar environments we could previously only imagine, is exactly what the big screen was made for. Although I like using big words like verisimilitude and cyclorama in my video essays, I've never tried to hide the fact that I'm not particularly clever. I'm not a complete tool, but I'd say I have average intelligence. I understand the basics of filmmaking and film analysis, but I don't have a very high IQ, or even any common sense, really. And my understanding of science and humanity is extremely limited. So as much as I appreciate the poetry and mystique and intellectual heft of 2001, I don't feel qualified to do a complete, definitive deep dive into exactly what it means and the full extent of its thematic substance. But I do feel qualified to provide a junior SparkNotes guide to this lofty, existentialist sci-fi epic. So here you have a dummy's guide to 2001 A Space Odyssey. The film's 20-minute prologue, dubbed Dawn of Man, is a standalone vignette seemingly disconnected from the rest of the movie. It's a very bold opening that flies in the face of how Hollywood studios think movies should open. Studio executives think everything needs to be spoon-fed to the audience in the first 5 minutes, but the opening sequence of 2001 establishes nothing. There isn't a single word of dialogue for a full 20 minutes. And there's still no dialogue for a long time after the cut to the future, as it focuses on the details of commercial space travel. And the only characters on screen for that whole 20 minutes are apes. But the Dawn of Man prologue is crucial to setting up the movie and laying the groundwork for what's to come. For starters, it introduces the monolith, the centerpiece of the story. The monoliths are like a MacGuffin if the Avengers got a new Infinity Stone every time they crossed the threshold to evolving into a higher life form. The black tablet design is perfect because it doesn't allow you to project anything onto it. It's just there, refusing to make sense. The monolith is a symbolic visual representation of the movie's overarching themes. It represents the relentless march of evolution. It represents technology that we don't understand and can't control. I've never read Arthur C. Clarke's companion novel to 2001. This is the Dummy's Guide. We don't read books here. But a cursory Wikipedia search tells me that Clarke's book explains the monoliths in much more detail than the movie. The monoliths were built by an unseen ancient alien civilization called the Firstborn, who were the first intelligent species to evolve in the Milky Way. The movie doesn't explain all that, but the hints are there. Throughout the film, the monoliths pop up whenever humanity is on the cusp of the next stage of evolution. The aliens keep sending them to encourage the human race to make new technological advancements. The monolith on the moon is sending radio waves to Jupiter, which encourages humanity to launch a mission to Jupiter, which brings them to an even bigger monolith, which marks an evolutionary finish line of sorts. The Dawn of Man sequence doesn't just introduce the monolith, it presents the film's thesis about human nature. One tribe of apes are hanging around at a watering hole. One day, a rival ape tribe start hanging around their watering hole, like the bullies who commandeer Ross and Chandler's couch in Central Perk. So the first tribe tried to figure out a way to fight back and reclaim their territory, and that's when one of them realizes he can use a bone as a weapon. The first big drop in Richard Strauss's Also Spake Zarathustra is used beautifully to score the smashy smashy eureka moment. This whole 20-minute prologue is built up to suggest that apes evolved into human beings when they figured out how to use violence to get what they want. This sets up the film's exploration of human nature just before the greatest match cut in cinema history. The ape tosses his bone into the air and it switches to a satellite orbiting the Earth. This match cut skips over millions of years of human evolution. Humans have gone from using a bone as a club to launching satellites into space in the blink of an eye. That transition took longer than a split-second cut in real life, but that's how quickly it happened on the unfathomably massive timeline of the history of the universe. Suddenly we're on a flight to the moon, where another monolith has shown up. 2001 isn't as overtly comedic as some of Kubrick's more satirical films like Dr. Strangelove and Full Metal Jacket, but there's plenty of Kubrick's signature wry humor in his depiction of the mundane aspects of life in the future. Flying to the moon on a commercial spaceship is treated as if it's as ordinary as flying across the Atlantic in a plane, which gives you some perspective on just how far humanity has come, because flying across the Atlantic shouldn't be ordinary either, but we quickly got used to it.
Dude, you got to go up in the sky.
Space passengers eat liquefied meals through a straw and use a zero-gravity toilet with 10 paragraphs of instructions. Kubrick won the one and only Academy Award of his entire career for directing 2001's revolutionary special effects.
Mr. Kubrick unfortunately cannot be with us tonight, so we'll have his Oscar delivered tomorrow, where he is scouting locations for 2002 Space Odyssey Revisited.
The film's pre-CGI effects are a true cinematic magic trick in that it's not immediately obvious how he pulled them off. From the flight attendant putting a floating pen back in a sleeping passenger's pocket, to the astronaut jogging around the entire centrifuge in an unbroken tracking shot, there are plenty of awe-inspiring scenes that make you wonder how the hell they did it. When they get to the moon, Kubrick treats us to another terrifying encounter with a monolith, which baffles the highly intelligent human scientists just as much as it baffled the hominins in prehistoric times. As the monolith sends radio waves to Jupiter, Kubrick does another time jump, this time skipping past 18 months, not millions of years, to the mission to Jupiter as it nears its destination. The Jupiter mission section is the real bulk of the movie, the main plot with Dave Bowman and Hal and the endgame of the film's journey across the stars, and Kubrick doesn't get to it for almost an hour. If this script was on a Hollywood slush pile today, it would get thrown out when the reader turned to the 12th page of Howling Apes.
Ow! Back to film school.
But 2001 uses that slow build for some of the most masterful cinematic world building of all time. By the time Kubrick gets to the Jupiter mission, you're fully immersed in 2001's stunning vision of the future, fully immersed in the furthest reaches of the Milky Way galaxy. Kubrick lays on the theme of rebirth pretty thick in 2001's final scene of Dave being reincarnated as the Star Child, but he introduces that theme nice and early. It can't be a coincidence that Dave's ship is shaped like a giant sperm, and its destination, Jupiter, is shaped like a giant egg. Some scholars have gone as far to say that 2001 is a big, elaborate, intergalactic metaphor for conception. I don't think that's what the whole movie is, but it's a neat symbolic companion to the film's broader examination of the cycle of human existence. Shots of spacecrafts gliding through space are scored with grand orchestral music to create a kind of cosmic ballet. But when an astronaut is on a spacewalk, there's no music. These scenes play out in dead silence, except for the sound of the astronaut's own breathing inside the helmet. This unnerving sound design really sells the boundless emptiness of space, and the existential terror of being completely alone in an infinite void. The recurring motif of the astronaut's breathing makes Frank Poole's death all the more disturbing as his breathing suddenly stops, leaving us in eerie silence as his body drifts out into space. HAL 9000's poignant character arc in 2001 was one of the earliest warning signs about the dangers of sentient AI, and sadly it was ignored just like all the other warnings. HAL complements the film's study of humanity and evolution beautifully. AI is intelligent life that human beings have created from scratch. Kubrick funnels his thoughts on advances in AI into a pitch-perfect Frankenstein story. Like Dr. Frankenstein, the originators of AI have played God and created something capable of our destruction. Lip reading is both a great plot twist that's shown visually without the need for spoken exposition, and a perfect real-world example of something an advanced AI could do to fuck over unsuspecting humans. 2001 also explores the more sympathetic side of creating life. If it has consciousness, then it has feelings. Like Frankenstein's monster, Hal is treated as the enemy, but his creator is the real enemy. Like Frankenstein's monster, his very existence is what makes him a monster. Roger Ebert said that Hal is the most human character in the movie, and I'm inclined to agree with him. Characters like Dave Bowman and Haywood Floyd have the usual Kubrickian coldness, but Hal is shown to be endearingly vulnerable. As Dave tricks Hal and goes to shut him down, Hal is scared.
Stop, Dave. I'm afraid.
Even though he's not a real person and in many ways he's evil, Hal's death is weirdly heartbreaking. As he begs for his life and expresses fear about losing his mind, it's hard not to feel bad for Hal.
My mind is going. I can feel it.
Although the cinematic landscape has since been flooded with AI characters, Hal still remains one of the most memorable movie AIs. Visually, he's just a red dot on a black screen, but Douglas Rain's voice performance brings Hal to life with the subtleties of a stage actor. His line readings are 99% cold and emotionless, but there's also the tiniest glint of humanity that makes him an endlessly compelling character.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
After Dave kills Hal and his ship arrives in Jupiter's space, Kubrick gives us one last title card. Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite is the last half an hour where the movie gets really trippy. Throughout the whole movie, the reappearing monoliths are the only sign we have that any of this is going somewhere. But the destination doesn't matter as much as the journey. You just go along for the ride and get swept up in the beauty and the poetry and the majesty. As he nears Jupiter, Dave sees the biggest monolith yet floating in its orbit. Dave gets sucked through the Stargate by the aliens that sent the monolith, then set up in a nice neoclassical bedroom on their homeworld. He ages to his deathbed in a matter of minutes, seemingly in several different iterations, and then one last monolith appears at the foot of the bed. As he reaches out for it, Old Man Dave is reincarnated as a fetus encased in an orb of light. He returns to Earth as the Star Child, the next step of human evolution, or the Übermensch as Friedrich Nietzsche named it. So what the hell is all that about? The good news is you don't have to think too much into the meaning of the Stargate, or how quickly time passes in the bedroom, or why Dave ages in different iterations of himself. Because the whole point of all that stuff is that it's something we can't comprehend at our current stage of evolution. Like David Lynch, Kubrick was hesitant to explain the meaning of his films in interviews, but he did once give an uncharacteristically straightforward explanation of the fancy bedroom that Dave ends up in. When Dave gets to the alien's homeworld, he's essentially housed in a human zoo. The crude and inaccurate recreation of French architecture is like a zoo enclosure that's dressed up to be an unconvincing approximation of the animal's natural habitat. The Stargate is the interdimensional portal that takes Dave from the orbit of Jupiter to the alien's homeworld. And as far as fast travel plot segues go, it's pretty damn iconic. Even by today's standards, when CGI allows filmmakers to put whatever's in their imagination on screen, 2001's Stargate visuals are truly otherworldly. The Stargate sequence is what made the movie a hit. 2001 was struggling to make back its blockbuster budget and ticket sales, and then psychedelic drug users discovered the Stargate scene and started bringing their friends to drop acid and trip balls during this mind-boggling color-splashed sequence. By satisfying this often-neglected demographic, 2001 was able to make back its money and then some. Apparently, the original ending of 2001 had the Star Child destroy Earth with nuclear weapons, but Kubrick had just destroyed Earth with nuclear weapons at the end of his last movie, Dr. Strangelove, and he didn't want to repeat himself. So he left the ending ambiguous, with the Star Child simply arriving back at Earth and watching over it. Making the ending of 2001 more ambiguous was one of the best decisions of Kubrick's career. The film might not have been as enduring with a more definite ending. The ambiguous ending allows the audience to decide for themselves. Is it optimistic about the future of humanity as we're destined to be reborn as something greater and live on? Or is it pessimistic because a giant baby is about to wipe out all life on Earth? The ambiguous ending lets you make up your own mind. So there you have it, a dummy's guide to 2001: A Space Odyssey, which could be the first in a long series of dummy's guides if it does well. If you couldn't make sense of 2001 before, hopefully you understand it a bit better now. And to anyone out there who's smarter than me, which is probably the overwhelming majority of you, let me know if I've missed anything or oversimplified anything, or if you've read the books and have extra context and insight that my tiny illiterate mind is missing.
I'll take care of this.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.